All right, everybody, how's it going? The Schwantz27 here, and we've got another Warring Triads flag set for you. This time, we are doing Goddess's Edict here, where we've got a 7-character, 10 Esper Kefka unlock, starting off with 4 characters, getting Auto Shell for 3 dragon kills, Auto Haste for 4 dragon kills, or both of them for helping the Injured Lad quest. After 7 checks, our runners will get Auto Overcast and Auto Condemned. We will be able to multi-summon our Espers. We get more MP for fights, and there are more lures to start off with. However, we are missing and spells we cannot learn. Fire spells and ice spells, but we can learn Ultima at 254 MP. Additionally, the item rewards there are more armor-based than anything else, so if we're looking for some defense, then that's what we're going to go do here. We do have a matchup between Turdsman of Team Illumina versus Narvs of Team Valiant, and for this particular flag set, our skip is either 8 characters, 13 Espers, or 21 checks. So that's what we're going to look at for our skip. I think personally that our runners will probably get to 21 checks for the skip before they get the other 2. Although 8 characters is only 1 more than 7, but normally 7 characters is kind of a lot to ask for, even when you do start with 4 of them here. So as with all other Warring Triads flag sets, we do have a shuffled statue bosses in Kefka's Tower, and we also have our scaling at checks times 2.5, so our bosses are going to be a bit more beefy than they usually are, because dead checks will punish you. Our races are just about to get started here. So we'll see which 4 characters we start off with, and that will determine where we get to go in our particular race here. As we do get +3 boss levels off the bat and +6 dragon levels, so we have Umaro, Edgar, Mog with Blitz, Celeste with Capture, and Edgar with his vanilla tools. So we have a few options for some free checks here between Lone Wolf, the South Figaro basement, and the Figaro Castle. So we'll see where our runners decide to go here. It looks like both of them are checking out Narsh in order to perhaps peek what the Umaro's cave spot will hold, because remember, we do have Umaro. We can also go into the shed here and activate Lone Wolf, so we don't have to remember to do that later, because of course everybody every once in a while forgets to activate Lone Wolf. We do find an ice rod there, and a pair of fixed ice Narvs finds as well for one of our first nice weapons that we could potentially use. Ice Rod is interesting to pick up because it's one of the only ways that we're going to be able to use the ice spell in this flag set. We won't learn any ice magic from anything else. There's a cat hood for sale in the armor shop there. Turdsman wants to pick it up because Celeste can use it. Unfortunately, I don't think he's got enough money to do that yet, so maybe come back here a little bit later there once he gets some more money in order to get that cat hood. That is one of the things I almost always will buy instantaneously all the time. It's one of those things where you also can have a nice return on your investment there, because Cat Hood will pick up all of the possible GP for a particular battle, so it's definitely worth its weight in the GP that you put into it for sure. So we'll see what else we got going on here, as we got more stuff being sold, because we got a couple of earrings popping off over here. I didn't see what tool we started off with. Maybe when we get back in the menu there, we could see some enhancers there to increase our magic power +7. Unfortunately, Turdsman is running out of money, as is Narvs here. There's a lot of good stuff in that shop in the World of Balance Narsh. Unfortunately, I don't think either one of our runners decided to peek what the reward was at the Umaro Cave. You can actually go to the next screen to the north in the World of Balance Narsh to go peek that reward spot. Both of our runners heading to Returner's Hideout because there are 9 chests in here that we could potentially get some things from, and more likely stuff to sell to buy some of those things that we had in the other shop there. Gold Hairpin is a nice pickup in the Returner's Hideout because, as I mentioned, we do get 254 MP Ultima in this seed, so if our runners find either some Esper with the Ultima spell on it or eventually uncurse the shield, we could certainly go and get some more Ultima. In case people are wondering if they're just joining, this is another Goddess Edict flag set. You can tell that because of the palettes that some of the characters have. You got Edgar there in his nice gold outfit. Umaro looks like he's been left out in the sun a little bit too long, but you could confuse Umaro with a Poltergeist flag set there with that burnt color that he's got. So our runners are going to continue doing their first sorts of checks as Turdsman looks like he's going to go to the Figaro Castle along with Narvs here. If you have the Edgar character in the front of your party, as Turdsman does, and Narvs just swaps it over there, you actually get half off of all of the shops here in South Figaro, in the Figaro Castle rather, and it is Setzer on the throne with health. So unfortunately, not a great ability for Setzer to use because his magic power usually is on the lower end of things. So Turdsman not picking Setzer up immediately right away. However, we know that there are some fixed dice that we did find very early on in the seed. I don't know if Turdsman actually found them because they were, I believe, in the classroom. I don't really see them in his inventory, which is sort of alarming to me because Narvs did find them, so he might actually be wanting to take Setzer here. We do get some Revivifies from that shop owner, and that, my friends, is something you do want to see early on in your seeds, because with the Goddess flag set, after 7 checks, your characters don't die, they instead become zombies, so you're going to have to use your Revivifies and Fade on your Life, Life 2, and Phoenix Down spells. That also means, interestingly enough, as we get later on in the seed, that we will not be having Life 3 for Calmness protection. So when you die, you don't get the wound status, you instead get the zombie status. So Life 3 is not a viable form of Calmness protection in Goddess's Edict. Alright, Turdsman moving on to the town of South Figaro here. Meanwhile, Narvs immediately turns around with his Setzer pickup and goes to the Kolingin town here to pick something out of the cafe. We'll see what the reward is here. An Atla weapon and a fire rod, and it looks like it's Terra at the Kolingin Inn with Sketch. Pretty high magic power there. You can decide to swap one of these other characters out for Terra, maybe, perhaps? Looks like not at this time. So Narvs is already at 6 characters, and that has got some decent tools in that shop there. And by decent, I mean chainsaw is the only thing I'd actually buy. We do have Edgar with tools, so I don't know what the starting tool was, but I would definitely be picking up a chainsaw if my starting tool was not a drill. The thing with some of the palettes is that some of the NPCs don't want to play nicely with some of these palettes. I've noticed some NPCs could look a bit reddish instead of, you know, the intended yellow or orange flavor that we've got. Meanwhile, there is a check that we could do in the South Figaro basement here for both Turdsman and Narvs. We'll see if they decide to further push up the early scaling early on. Remember, in Warring Triads flag sets, the level of the enemies is going to be checks times 2.5. Alright, so we'll see if Turdsman decides to head into the check right away or if he decides to try and save it first. And that is another character. DJ Khaled, another one. That is Locke with Steel and some natural magic there. So Narvs is already going to be at character go mode, and is just going to have to find Espers here. Now, with Ultima, and with the fact that the statues are shuffled amongst themselves, with Locke, I would be immediately going for checking to see what that curse shield count is, because the Paladin shield is exceptionally good in this flag set. Getting to pass it along to all of your characters in Kefka's Tower to make sure that they have the best things on them. That wall ring is also very helpful for the Poltergeist fight, who we saw in one of our other seeds earlier tonight. That was one way that one of our runners got past the Poltergeist spot, was to use the wall ring, and of course Poltergeist casts the spell Stop, and then it reflects off of you and he stops himself. So that was pretty crazy. Alright, so now that Turdsman is out of the basement, we'll see where he decides to go. Narvs, meanwhile, took off the Moogle Charm. Unfortunately, the fights that he found were some magic urns, and those magic urns don't grant any XP. They only will give you MP. Looks like Tzenthief is selling a $15,000 item there, so that is something that is potentially something we won't see. Turdsman, meanwhile, sees an economizer here in the World of Balance to Zen relic shop, so he's going to file that away for later because, as I mentioned, he may be able to go uncurse that shield with Ultima. Meanwhile, Narvs has decided he's got enough stuff to go start doing some checks here. He does have that fixed dice, remember, that he got from the World of Ruin Narsh classroom, that Turdsman did not go and loot. Turdsman, however, does pick up a Thunder Rod there, one of the only ways that we will use some elemental magic in the seed, although since this is the Goddess flag set, we are able to use Bolt 1, 2, and 3 from Espers, so Thunder Rod is a little bit less useful than either an Ice Rod or a Fire Rod in this particular flag set, but you always like to have at least one rod just in case you need to get out of jail for free here. Yeah, I think that $15,000 for a dead check is usually pretty good because you could probably sell it back for more than that in most cases here. However, the problem is that you're going to increase the scaling pretty dramatically. That's not a word. I was going to say dramatically and I was going to say drastically, so I went with dramatically. Somebody can put that into Urban Dictionary there. So anyway, you increase the scaling pretty drastically by 2.5 levels just for a dead check. And the thing is that makes it even worse is the XP and MP that you get from enemies is based on your character's Espers and Dragons times 2.5. So dead checks increase the levels of the enemies, but don't necessarily increase how much XP and GP that you're getting per fight. I copyrighted it since I said it on live stream, dramatically. It sounds like the sword of Dramasticles. Anyway, Narv's heading into the Opera House here, and he is not going to be going to perform in the opera. Instead, he's going to do his Charlie Day duty here, clean out the rafts in the rafters, and then go and fight the boss here. I know that he took off the Moogle Charm, but I also don't think that he either went to get the Curse Shield or got into any fights that actually give him any XP. I think they were magic urns the first time, and based on his HP levels, he did take some grind fights there. is going to let Fixed Ice and Blitz and Tools carry him here for the beginning parts. Turdsman burning that Thunder Rod straight away here on the Scullion enemy. If he can get past this fight, it will be worth a lot of XP. So I definitely agree with him to burn that Thunder Rod here. Great also heads up vanilla game knowledge, knowing that you can grab an air anchor off of this enemy, and having, excuse me, a natural tools user means that we're probably going to use that air anchor after all. Meanwhile, Narvs is at the end of the first part of the Opera House here. Is going to head over to Ultros and see what we're going to get for our boss here at the end. Alright, so that is a huge boon for the levels. Already up to 13 there for Turdsman, so that's really nice to get that one grind fight down. Yeah, it did cost them a couple of rods, but you can't take them with you. And it looks like he is going to head into the beginner's house here to heal up. So for his sake, I hope he goes and picks this Fixed Ice out of the pot there, and he does. So now he knows, hey, maybe I should go put them on one of my characters, and at least he gets a build for it there. Meanwhile, Narvs decides to use his rods on the first boss of the game here, Atma, at the Opera House Disruption. Thankfully, Atma is weak to the main three elements of fire, ice, and lightning, so that fire rod definitely coming in handy. Unfortunately, the Aura Bolt that was learned from Mog on the Blitz side of things is not going to be as handy. Turdsman, meanwhile, deciding to potentially buy some stuff here. I think he was looking at the cat hood before in the armor shop. And there's a big beefy roll from Narvs, 554, putting out 2,000 damage, taking down the first boss of the seed. Alright, looks like Turdsman heading over to the Coliseum here. He's got the Fixed Ice, so he's going to try and see if he can grab something good out of the Coliseum here. There is no extra objective incentive for the Coliseum like there is in some other flag sets. Oh boy, did you see what I see? A Valiant knife there for the Mithril Blade. So hopefully he could dodge his way out of Nightshade there, as Narvs picks up his first Esper of the seed. There it is, Valiant Knife for one of his party builds for that Mithril Blade. We'll see which one of his characters is actually going to be able to use that Valiant Knife there. He also has an Atma weapon for later on. It looks like Mog can use the Valiant Knife, so that is what he's probably going to be doing for the rest of the seed there. Good on him. There's also an economizer in the Coliseum as well, in case we didn't want to spend 64k on it in the relic shop. That might come up later. I think part of the problem that these runners are having right now is they got so many characters at the beginning of the seed. They're having trouble trying to figure out exactly where to go, because they do want to balance the amount of free checks that they have compared with what they're going to be doing. They don't want to run up the score too much, which is why I think some of them have not gotten this Curse Shield yet, as we'll see Narvs grab it here, and the reward in the Norse Weapon Shop. We did not see what the Umaro Cave reward is, so maybe Narvs decides to go all the way up there now. That is a 6 Battle Curse Shield, so we're definitely going to be doing that this particular seed. Especially because we got a ribbon early on in one of our looting paths. I believe in the Narsh Shed. Alright, we're going to see what the reward is in the Narsh Weapon Shop from Narvs here. Remember, he's got all of his characters already, so he only needs Espers, and the Norse weapon shop is either an Esper or an item. And it looks like this is just an item. And it looks like it's not, two not very good ones there. Megalixir and Genji armor. The reward at Umaro's cave is not a character, because we did not see a character peeking out there. Turdsman, meanwhile, going to continue up to the top of Norsh, where he'll get the reward for Lone Wolf, and then potentially do Kefka at Norsh, since he can split his party up and still have a full party against the boss at Kefka at Norsh. Meanwhile, Narvs is looking in Monster in a Boxes for the offering to go with that Valiant knife, and hey, what do you know? It's Katana Soul! That is nice to find right then and there. So, Narvs is going to be chucking dice for a lot of damage here in the seed, and that is yet another character at the top of the World of Balance Norsh there at Lone Wolf. That is Realm. And we're definitely going to grab Realm and not the Thunder Shield. If we did want the Thunder Shield later on, we would have to go into the Moogle Mines in the World of Ruin Narsh. Quad 9s from Setzer there on that fixed dice, and Narvs will get the offering to go along with it. So he's already got his one endgame build there. Meanwhile, Realm coming into the fray there for Celeste. Has higher magic power than Celeste. And I believe that Edgar will probably be doing the Atma weapon for the long-term build for Narvs there, where he's got some short-term solutions in terms of a fixed dice for one of his characters, a Valiant knife for another character. And if he checks that Monster in a Box in the classroom, then he's going to be able to get the offering for any of those three builds. Meanwhile, Narvs picks up on the Curse Shield with a count of 6 and threw the ribbon on. So the Curse Shield, not only having the ability to learn Ultima, but with that Atma weapon user, is able to absorb basically all the elements to keep that HP high. However, it's a Magi Master in the sky here. And it looks like Narvs is going to go ahead and crack this Flame Shield. This is a good play on the first turn for Magi Master, as he now will change his wall, and now the fixed dice with the offering can take over. Fixed dice can't miss regardless, but the offering... the offering is unfortunately on the Atma weapon user. So this means his Atma weapon won't miss, because Magi Master has very high physical evade. Meanwhile, Rasopus and the Piranhas is the boss for Turdsman at the top of Kefka at Norsh. Yeah, Narvs has just got to pull through this Magi Master with the Edgar and the Setzer here. Meanwhile, I think Turdsman has the Cursed Ring on lock, so that is another really great relic that I will always buy if I see it in the shop, because you never know if you're going to get any instant death spells in the seed. The Cursed Ring will allow you to learn X Zone once you get to 20 magic points for your particular character. And that's Kefka at Norsh done here. And that's Turdsman's first Esper of the seed. So we'll see if he parlays this right back into Moogle defense, and that's Magi Master down for Narvs. Unfortunately, it's just going to be for some XP there, as that was Golem at the top of Kefka at Norsh. So that's huge for Turdsman, because Narvs may not make it back up to Kefka at Norsh in this seed. It's also got Magic Power +1, which is good to get early on in your Espers. It was just some Genji armor for Narvs, unfortunately. Turdsman, meanwhile, not digging in the Monster in a Box here, is going to decide to do Moogle defense instead. Now, both of our runners have 7 characters already. So, I like this play from Narvs here, heading up to the World of Ruin Narsh. I don't think he's peaked the reward yet at the Yeti Cave, but we know that this is not this is not a character, rather it's an Esper, an item. And on top of that, you get access to Tritalk, which is only an Esper item as well. So he'll get at most 2 Espers here and his first dragon potentially to not only learn some spells, but get that much closer to Auto Shell and Auto Haste. It is the red dragon here. And seeing Mog for the Moogle defense means that this is not a character here at the top of the World of Ruin, rather the Moogle defense at World of Balanced Narsh. Yeah, Hefe pointing out that Turdsman went back to go buy the cat hood after seeing it early on and not having enough money to go buy it. Putting it on his realm. Because as I mentioned before, cat hood will grant you all of the GP from a battle, so it basically makes its money back throughout the course of the seed. It's one of the only things that I instantly buy every single time I see it, if I can afford it. Meanwhile, Narvs gets the Mega Elixir, and that is unfortunately his 7th check there with that dragon. So he's now got Auto Overcast and Auto Condemned. So he's now going to have to start using those Revivifies. And speaking of Revivifies, this is an undead enemy here for Turdsman. He smartly knows that and goes, hey, I'm going to sprinkle a little Revivify dust on you, and that's going to basically do it. Meanwhile, Narv's heading up to the top of the World of Ruin Narsh for Tritalk here. And it is Ultros 2. And it's a different boss for Turdsman, number 24. Oh, that overflow missing on the fixed dice user is a very nice thing to happen there. Yeah, so the difference in this seed so far is that Narvs has found the offering in the monster in a box in the classroom, but Turdsman has found a Valiant knife in the Coliseum, and that's what Mog is using. Little slightly different party compositions as well here for both of our runners, as Turdsman using the dance ability with Poison Frog to go ahead and take down that number 24 fight. Meanwhile, it is the second Esper Siren for Narvs, and that one's a juicy one with Bolt 3 on it, as well as being really nice for the final Kefka fight. That's also an Esper for Turdsman with Tritalk after Moogle defense as well. Yeah, unfortunately in Worlds Collide, if your character is dead, they do not grant XP. And unlike in the vanilla game, you don't get more XP for your other characters. XP is divided evenly in Worlds Collide. It is an Esper from the Umaro Cave, Ragnarok the Esper. So that right there, folks, is a nice top of the World of Ruin Narsh for Narvs there, after getting rifling off 7 characters at the start of the seed. This is also a pretty easy fight here with Dataluma. Won't pose much of a threat. Just gotta keep Celeste alive to learn some spells. Because he did get the Siren Esper that does have Bolt 3 on it. Unfortunately, Dataluma does not give any MP. Meanwhile, Turdsman heading to the Magitech Factory here. The first 2 checks can only reward an Esper or an item, so he's hoping to at least bag a couple out of here, and we'll see if he decides to go all the way through the Magitech Factory. Now, going through the Magitech Factory will be a guaranteed piece of progression at the end of it. However, it's after 3 forced encounters and 2 bosses. So we'll see if he uses some of his warp stones to warp out after the first check. Narvs picking up that 3rd Esper there after defeating Illumina. Magic power +2 on that Esper, plus more chance to learn Bolt 3. Narvs taking the path of getting some really good Espers early on here. Strength +1 is really nice to have on your Valiant Knife user there, so that is what Turdsman is going to do. And Narvs, meanwhile, heading into the Phoenix Cave with the chance of getting not only a reward, but also taking on the dragon here in the Phoenix Cave. He's already got 1 dragon, and I think he's going to go after at least 3 for that autosave. And as a reminder, the Kefka Tower skip is at 8 characters or 13 Espers or 21 checks. So, at this rate, we do know where 8 characters are, believe it or not, because Turdsman found Realm, while Narvs found Terra. And 21 checks is going to be pretty easy to come by, having to get to 7 and 10 with a couple of dragons mixed in there regardless. Really leaning on Dance for Realm is what Turdsman is doing here while learning some spells in the meantime. Nice Thunder Shield and a chest there for Narvs. Will actually allow his characters to learn Bolt 2, because we do not learn Fire and Ice spells in this seed. We only can learn Bolt spells. And that is a Minerva there. Thankfully, Realm can wear that. Narvs heading through the back half of Phoenix Cave here with his 2 parties. Meanwhile, Turdsman is going to go continue on in the Magitech Factory. And as I mentioned, getting so many characters early leaves the world so open to you that sometimes you just have to pick a place and go to it. And that's what these runners are sort of doing here. They're just picking spots and are just going. Because it could sometimes be analysis paralysis if you think about it too much. Air Force here for Turdsman, and is going to use the Tritalk Esper Summon. This is a nice heads-up play from him here. Multi-summon is on in the Goddess Edict flag set, and he knows that Air Force is weak to lightning, which is one of the 3 elementals that the Tritalk summon puts out. And if a boss isn't nullifying or absorbing one of those other 2 elements, it's a pretty powerful spell to actually use. So good heads-up play there from Turdsman. Meanwhile, Narvs is going to go ahead and tell this dragon, "Fight me, bro." And we'll see which one it is. It is the Dirt Dragon, and oh no! It's a travesty in the Magitech Factory. 2 dead checks in a row. But at least Turdsman knows that this check will get him something guaranteed. Meanwhile, Dirt Dragon over there for Narvs. Our dragons got +6 levels to start off the seed, so dragons are actually even a bit more strong than bosses are in this flag set, which can be very interesting. Meanwhile, Dirt Dragon coming out with all the stops here, using Hone Tusk and Quarter against Narv's team. Can be especially brutal. It might be a little bit too early to be using this Atma weapon user even with an offering. I know it's a lot slower, but you do a heck of a lot more damage with that fixed ice and that offering right now. Turdsman, meanwhile, using Phoenix Downs here instead of Revivifies, because remember, now that we have Auto Overcast, our characters will turn into zombies instead of turning them dead. So those Phoenix Downs are now pretty much as useful as a screen door on a submarine. That is to say, not useful at all. Red jacket there from that boss. So a good defensive piece of gear there for narvs. Red jacket will nullify out fire damage. Third of 3 battles here for Turdsman at the Magitech Factory. Is going to run away from this one as well. Don't blame him. Ninjas can be scary. They're not as bad as coverts or outsiders, but they're still... That sprite just doesn't play nice. Flame Eater is also an interesting boss in this flag set because we don't have any ice spells. And at the end of the Phoenix Cave, that's another Esper there. It is Raiden for narvs, so narvs taking a pretty decent lead here in terms of our progression. Alright, so crashing into the end of the Magitech Factory here is Turdsman. So you do get a story heal before you fight this next boss. You do not need to use your sleeping bags here. Yeah, so narvs is also going to have a big advantage because he did start uncursing that shield. He's probably got a paladin shield by now. If not now, then definitely relatively soon. And it's hiding in the Haydenites here for Turdsman at the end of the Magitech Factory. Thankfully, it is an Esper, though. And then narvs is starting his Magitech Factory run. He will be disappointed with the 2 dead checks before going towards the end there. Nice block there on the Confused Claw. There's Mog with that Valiant knife finally putting in work. Magic is a lot stronger early on in Worlds Collide than physical attacks, so it makes sense why we would see that magic being used with the Aura Bolt and some of the other blitzes that he has. And there it is, Turdsman with his 3rd Esper there at the end of the Magitech Factory. Meanwhile, narvs is going to pick up a Minerva and a red jacket before deciding whether or not to nope out of this check or not. So let's see where Turdsman decides to go next. He's got plenty of places to go. Looks like he's flying up towards the Setzer side of the world here. So remember, Terra is here, I believe, at the Kolonjin Inn. So that is going to be Kefka Tower skip unlock for Turdsman. Getting his 8th character. Which only adds to the amount of checks that you have. Especially Terra, because she has 5 of them. Picking up that Noise Blaster there. I hope for his sake that he goes to the world of Ruin Narsh next. Because not only will he be able to pick up the Curse Shield, he will be able to potentially fight Katana Soul. Because he did peek at the top of Narsh and knows that Umaro is not a character. It looks like that's where he's going next. It's going to put off Daryl's Tomb for a little bit, because Daryl's Tomb is one of those checks you can go and peek. Meanwhile, Narvs just keeps getting stronger, even though Air Force almost ended up killing him there. And unfortunately for him, he doesn't look in the monster in a box there. So we'll see how this offering comes into play for Narvs. And Narvs is going to warp out of the Magitech Factory before going all the way to the end. So he is going to be leaving a Esper on the table there. However, he's got so many other checks that it makes sense for him not to go all the way through there. Meanwhile, Turdsman also not going to grab the Cursed Shield either. Will probably be disappointed when he finds out it was the minimum of 6 battles for this seed. And he's going to grab 2 Espers here at the top of Narsh. Meanwhile, Narvs is going up the top of the other part of Narsh, the world of balanced Narsh, so that means he gets to do everything here, including finding Strago at the Welk spot, so he's going to be at Kefka Tower skip mode here. So it looks like Narvs is using the multi-summon for Terato here on Funbaba. Funbaba not necessarily weak to Earth, but hey, it's better than whatever else we have, because Funbaba does absorb Bolt spells, which are the only ones that we can learn in terms of the main 3 elements there. So that is Strago for Narvs, and that is his 8th character. So that's the Kefka Tower skip unlock, plus he's going to go back here and grab yet another check, the Mega Elixir. That puts him at 15 checks so far, whereas Turdsman completing that dragon now is only at 11 checks. Alright, so Narvs is heading up to the top here. I wonder if he's going to pick Realm or if he's going to choose the other item. I don't remember what the... Oh, the other item was the Thunder Shield. So it'll be interesting knowing that Narvs already has 8 characters and he just turns around and says no thanks. So if you don't want that other character there, one thing you can do is you can pick the item that Lone Wolf goes to drop. This way you do get credit for the check as far as Kefka skip, but you don't necessarily get the character. Alright, that's Esper number 4 there for Turdsman, and he will get Esper number 5 in Umaro's Cave. Meanwhile, Narvs on this loop through the top of Narsh here is going to get 2 more Espers as well. One from Kefka at Narsh and one from Moogle Defense. The Sopus and the Piranhas is the enemy at Kefka at Narsh here. Question from the chat, Knuckly Kong, are Fire Rods and Flame Shields removed as well? No, Fire Rods and Flame Shields are still in the seed. However, the Flame Shield will not teach the Wearer Fire 2. Much in this flag set. Much in the same way that Ice Shields can't teach our runners the Ice 2 spell in this flag set. So Fire Rods are particularly nice in this flag set because it's one of the only ways that you could use fire magic, because Goddess's Edict does not teach fire or ice spells, only bolt spells. So some of the other things that Goddess's Edict flag set will let you do, or rather is more palpable in this flag set, is having the Magitech ability with Fire Beam, as well as having Fire Dance on Blitz is going to be helpful to you. So that's another Esper there for Narvs. That's his Calmness Protection with Golem, so he did end up going all the way up to the top of Narsh for that. Turdsman, meanwhile, pulls his shiny stone out of the bone carving there and will end up getting it from Illumina. Narv's checking out the Moogle defense, and we know from Turdsman that this is an Esper. Yeah, Dr. DT also points out that we do have a fire spell in our list of dances with Elf Fire. I don't know if I've seen either one of our runners use it yet, but that is certainly a possibility. Alright, now that Turdsman is done with the world of Ruin Narsh, we'll see where he decides to go next. Been a lot of Narsh so far in this seed, and with these characters, who could blame you? We've had Mog, we've had Umara, we've had Terra, we've had Locke. So everything is coming up Narsh. Uh-oh. Overflow hitting number 24, and that's going to turn Setzer into a zombie, and Setzer has the fixed ice for Narvs. This is potential disaster territory here. Oh no. Meanwhile, Turdsman finally checks this monster in a box here in the classroom, and does find his Katana Soul, so he will get the offering now that that Narvs has had. So he'll be able to throw that on either his Valiant Knife user, or his Atma Weapon user, or his Fixed Ice user. Remember, he has all three, whereas Narvs did not find the Fixed Ice at the Coliseum. And it's going to be a slow recovery here from Narvs. But thankfully he gets through it. Unfortunately, Celeste, who has not been getting XP basically the entire game, ends up not getting any there either. But Narvs does pick up Tritalk to get his 6th Esper. So both of our runners just need to get to 10 Espers here in order to unlock their final Kefka. As I mentioned, Kefka Tower skip was at 8 characters or 13 Espers or 21 checks. And since both of our runners got so many characters out of the gate, we got to 8 pretty easily. And in fact, we have 2 different sets of 8 characters on the screen. You'll notice that Turdsman, he has got... he's got Realm, whereas Narvs has Strago instead. Question from Knuckly Kong, does Ribbon cancel Revivify? It actually does. So what the Ribbon does is it prevents you from getting any status changes, right? So Ribbon doesn't prevent Overcast from turning you into a zombie, but it will prevent a Revivify from changing you back. Obviously, the vanilla part of Worlds Collide never really intended for, you know, Overcast to be used outside of the Goddess fight. So that's, I assume, why they coded the ribbon that way. And it looks like both of our runners, in spite of having so many checks open to them, are both going to the same spot here with the pair of Edgar checks. Now, it'll be interesting to see if we see a character sprite here at the beginning of this check, and we see, do our runners decide to reset? And it is an imp, so it looks like we're going to continue on this path, at least for the time being. Alright, so this is one of Edgar's checks, the Figaro Castle engine room, where you fight the tentacles of the vanilla game. You need to complete this check in order to get access to the Ancient Castle check, so we'll see if either one of our runners decide to go through the entire loop here. There is a dragon down in the Ancient Castle, as that's a bunch of money back to back there. Really nice to see. Not quite sure why our runners are still digging in chests. I'm wondering what they're looking for at this point. Meanwhile, we have the cranes as the boss here. So now, the enemies are going to start to get pretty difficult. Narvs is up to 17 checks. So his enemies are going to be basically level 34 plus half of 17, so that's another 8, right? So they're at basically level 42, 43. Turdsman's are at 13 times 2, which is 26, and half of 13 is another like 6 or 7. So they're in the 30s. Thankfully, this is a pretty straightforward, easy fight. And we do get another Esper there, Crusader, for our troubles. HP plus 50 on that Esper. So we're going to give it to either our Atma Weapon or Valiant Knife user, most likely there. Alright, so Narvs at least is going to surface the castle, and it looks like they're going to continue onwards to the Ancient Castle, looking for that third dragon to get that auto shell for his team. Remember, both of our runners already have skip, so there's no reason to do additional checks beyond going to get your Espers here. And there's also, sometimes you want to go down to Ancient Castle in order to look in the monster in a boxes, because there's 2 of them down here. However, we have already found our offering in the classroom, so there's no reason for that. We're really going down here to grab this check and to take on this dragon. And it's not a character there at that spot. It is a Esper there. Odin, little French vanilla action. Magic power plus 2. Very nice. Alright, let's see which dragon we have here. It's the Storm Dragon. Thankfully, we were able to learn lightning spells, which is what the weakness of the Storm Dragon is. Two simultaneous dragon fights here. And they go down pretty simultaneously, too. I didn't see what the reward for the dragon was. I looked away for like a half a second. I'm sorry, chat. Because of course I did. But Turdsman picking up his 7th Esper here. Narvs has his 8th. It was a Mega Elixir. Thank you very much, Knuckly Kong, in chat for keeping me honest. Alright, so we still have plenty of peekable checks to go do. We have Mobliz for both runners. We have Daryl's Tomb for both runners. Turdsman has Realm's Esper Mountain. And Narvs has Fanatic's Tower. Which is where he could also get a 4th dragon under his belt. Narvs is up to 20 checks, whereas Turdsman's at 16. So again, a little bit of a discrepancy there. Narvs doing 4 more checks than Turdsman has in basically the same amount of time. However, that also is making his fights more difficult. But once you're at 20, now your enemies are at the maximum level they're going to be. They're at 50. So you can continue to keep doing checks after 20, and your enemies won't get any more difficult. Turdsman making an interesting play here for Miranda. There is only a weapon shop and a armor shop here in Miranda, so it's not one we usually see our runners go to. But he's got a buttload of money. From killing Katana Soul and that cat hood. So it certainly makes sense why he's here. Meanwhile, Narvs is doing one of those peekables that I mentioned before. He is in Mobliz in the World of Ruin. We can go downstairs in the post office, or what used to be the post office, and go and talk to the little girl. And of course, I did not see what that was. I was looking at Turdsman trying to figure out where he was going. And since he's walking out, he didn't like what he saw there. That's part of the benefit of doing or leaving your peekable checks until the end. Is that now you could just say, hey, I don't want to go through the painstaking process of having to do this check. Our chat confirming it was another Mega Elixir. Meanwhile, that is an item there. A $15,000 Minerva is not a bad item, but he'll see that none of his characters can equip it. Oh, maybe Mog can. Meanwhile, it's Phoenix Cave here for Turdsman, so he's going to get... remember, there was an Esper in Phoenix Cave that Narvs did, and he's going to get the 3rd dragon here. So basically, Narvs at this point is a Phoenix Cave ahead of Turdsman in terms of progression. Well, I should say a Phoenix Cave and a dragon fight. So it's a pretty close race here, all things considered. After almost 55 minutes of this. Selling off that gold hairpin now that he can buy an economizer, because an economizer is a better version of a gold hairpin. Yeah, money's getting thrown out here all over the place. People just have the cash on hand. Alright, here's another very fast check that we haven't yet seen. The South Figaro Cave. This is not a peekable check, however, it's so quick that it's probably just worth doing. Alright, and it is a ghost train. Are we going to see that suplex? Come on, Narvs, give it to us. Unfortunately, we are not getting our suplex, chat. So here's an interesting strategy. Turdsman decided to step on all the spikes for his party because he knows that one of his characters is a Valiant knife user, so that Valiant knife user now has 1 HP to go up against the boss here. So it's probably going to blow this boss away pretty quickly. Oh, it's a behemoth suit, unfortunately, at South Figaro Cave. The danger here is, if your Valiant Knife user dies from 1 HP and they turn into a zombie, then that could be a bit of a problem. But alas, our Valiant Knife user cuts through that dirt dragon, and that is the 3rd dragon for Turdsman. And he will have his 8th Esper at the end of this as well. Here's a new check that we have not seen either. Zozo Tower. This is one of Terra's checks. See what the boss at the top is here. Oh, it's Chatternook. I think his caster Celeste knows Pearl, so I don't think this will be a bit of a problem for him here. So Pearl is one of the weaknesses of this boss. Unfortunately, in this seed, where we have just Bolt, Chatternook absorbs thunder magic or bolt magic, so that's not going to work here on our boy Chad. Turdsman been getting the bad news that his Esper is in another castle. Alright, and Chatternook is down for narvs, so we'll see what he gets at the top of Zozo Tower. And it is... Oh, it's another item! Wow. Incredible. So our runners have got to start feeling the pressure now. An hour into the siege, still looking for those last two espers. In the case of Narvs, he has done 23 checks already. He's missing out on all of Strago's checks and the Moogle defense, as well as half of Terra's checks. Leet River and Sealed Gate Cave. We did peak Mobiles, and that was not an Esper or character. It was an item. Meanwhile, this Magimaster for Turdsman, a bit unfortunate because this Magimaster is way higher of a level than Narvs' was, and it's not going to give him anything. This was another dead check here. But Turdsman does have some pretty good tools to use against Magimaster here, between the Fixed Ice, the Atma Weapon Offering, and the Meteor Spell. So this will be some good, nice XP for Turdsman. It's just not what he's looking for at this point. Alright, we can read the inscription on the tomb at Daryl's tomb before we could see it. That was a pitiful quad ones roll, or triple ones roll, for 76 damage. Alright, Madwin is one of our espers. So we definitely need that. And thankfully, this is a boss that is weak to lightning, number 128. So this should go down without a problem here. Meanwhile, it's turning very dangerous here for Turdsman. Thankfully, Locke throws the Fixed Ice at Magimaster while in zombie form for that quad 9s. You love to see it. Unfortunately, it's a Genji armor for him, and he's going to have to go heal his party up a little bit, as Narvs grabs Esper number 9 there. Alright, so Narvs does not have Realm and is outside of Jador. Turdsman does have Realm and is outside of Jador. So we'll see if there's an Esper here in the auction house. There are Espers in the auction house, and we have a ton of money, folks. So we're going to see some auction house action. And we start out with a Snow Muffler. Narvs, meanwhile, starts off with an Esper. So there's the difference in RNG, folks. Turdsman been buying the $50,000 item to get it out of the pool. And now he's got to go back in to go grab that other Esper. There's a $20,000 Esper, which Narvs just picked up for his go mode. There's another Snow Muffler. So I think this is the $10,000 reward slot because it said inside is or rather it's a Splendid chest, and the Splendid chests are always the rewards. So Turdsman gonna buy this one too. Which in hindsight is probably not a good idea. This really only increases the chances that you get an Imp Robot. But he's at least going to save before going back in to go buy another Esper here. Meanwhile, Narvs is going to do one final dragon before entering into Kefka's tower to get to the auto haste status. Oh, there's the Imp Robot, and that's the auto reset. couple of nice Bolt 3 spells, and there goes that dragon. So that'll be auto haste there for narvs. And it's an Imp Robot Fiesta there for Turdsman. Looks like narvs is going to go learn Bum Rush here. When you're at level 42 or higher, you can go to this cabin in the World of Ruin, and you could watch this 1 minute or so cutscene and learn Bum Rush. Meanwhile, Turdsman finally gets this shiny stone there. So that'll be his 9th Esper. And then he may go through Alger's Mansion to go get his 10th. Because he's already here in Jador. Alright, it looks like he is instead going to go to Realm's other check, which is way faster and peekable at Esper Mountain here. And it is Cyan, so that is not our answer there. We'll see where Turdsman decides to go next. Alright, so that's Bum Rush there for narvs after that minute-long cutscene. And now he'll probably be ready for Kefka's Tower here. Alright, meanwhile, Turdsman sees that it's Strago and will reset out of that fight as well. Alright, so let's see what the order these bosses are in here. Looks like narvs is picking on the Doom statue first, and we have Goddess here. And Celeste is his user over here with the Gembox Economizer using Ultima ×2. Meanwhile, we do have a suplex train for Turdsman, the official winner of the stream here. Meanwhile, this is South Figaro Cave, which we know is not our Esper here, unfortunately. Remember, we did pick up a gem box from a chest pretty early on in the seed. Turdsman, I know, sold his in order to buy a bunch of stuff. Narvs must have held on to his and used it to good potential there against Goddess in order to easily wipe that one out. Meanwhile, Turdsman is finally going for his 10th Esper here. We know that Daryl's Tomb does have Madeline, so he'll be on the right track after this. Looks like Narvs is going to go to the drinks glue strategy here in the tower. Take one down, pass it around. And by passing it around, I mean passing the Paladin shield around. So this way, at least one of his characters in all of his teams is going to be basically immune to almost everything that that boss throws at you. I think it'll ultimately wind up on our Atma weapon user. Ultras 1 taken care of pretty easily there. Meanwhile, Turdsman finally getting the good news here that he's finally found his other Esper. And it is Doom up the center. So Narvs has brought a pretty decent party to this fight because he's got his Atma weapon offering user. So that will bypass the image status in phase 2, excuse me. And he also has a fixed dice user, and fixed dice always hits. So that'll also bypass that image status. He just has to be careful of the health of his Atma weapon user, because Edgar's getting a bit bullied here by these counterattacks. Alright, meanwhile, Turdsman gets Madeline and unlocks his final Kefka finally. We'll see if they decide to go after Dragon number 4, and based on the trajectory of the airship, it looks like he is. So he's going to have a real uphill battle to climb, because Narvs is already done with 3/4 of the tower here. Alright, so Skulldurgan for Turdsman, and Narvs will be fighting up against Poltergeist here. That's the last statue boss that we've got. Skulldurgan goes down really without a problem there for Turdsman. Narvs, meanwhile, has to deal with Poltergeist, so he did learn Bum Rush for Mog, his Blitz user, so that'll hopefully come in handy. And I believe he still has the Wall Ring from the beginning of the Siege, so we'll see if that is useful for him or not. Using Airblade, which unfortunately is going to heal the boss. So Poltergeist absorbs both fire and wind elemental. And that's what Airblade is. It is a wind elemental magic spell there. Meanwhile, Turdsman heading into Kefka's tower as well at the statues. It's got a little bit of ground to make up here. Is just starting Kefka's tower. Meanwhile, Narvs has got one more boss to go in it. Turdsman leaving the Yeti on the airship. A move I fully endorse. It looks like narvs is having a little bit of trouble here with that that bum rush input. There we go. So this is going to get a bit dicey here for narvs, as he's only got, you know, 10 seconds left before that condemned counter counts away. And you can't wait trick with Umaro either. So narvs has got to hit this last bum rush, and it's got to kill Poltergeist. Otherwise, we're going to be doing this fight over again. It looks like we're going to be doing it over again anyway, because that end cross just ate up all of the time for that condemned counter. Yeah, not having Umaro be controllable with the auto-condemned and auto-overcast really just makes everything worse with this flag set if he's not one of your main damage dealers. Because you can't use him to wait trick, and he's going to waste up animation time and time on the timer doing turns that, quite frankly, don't really do very much with 60-something damage. Out comes the stop, and that is going to affect Strago. So Strago can at least go into the menus when he's stopped, because his ATB is all the way filled up. Unfortunately, that's the end of Strago there. So again, it's a race against the clock here for narvs. Can he take out Spicy Chicken with enough bum rushes before that timer goes down? Now that he's got the groove, I think, of doing the inputs correct, I think this will be much better for him here. Meanwhile, Turdsman has got his Doom fight here, using the fixed dice from Locke, and then going to use some non-reflectable magic there with Realm for the second phase. That is Meteor. And that is Spicy Chicken down for narvs, as he's going to go ahead and put himself in position for final Kefka now. That is his last boss down of the boss gauntlet. Doom going down there for Turdsman. Narv setting himself up there with Golem for his calmness protection. Remember, in this flag set, Life 3 is not calmness protection because of the auto overcast condition. Alright, so Turdsman is done with half of his Kefka Tower party here, has to defeat the other two side bosses. Meanwhile, narvs is creeping up towards final Kefka here. Overswarm raiding with a party of 16. That's a big long table that we've got in the back for you guys. Welcome to Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide stream. So yes, this is a matchup between Team Illumina, which features Turdsman and actually myself. So my teammate Turdsman is representing Team Illumina, and Team Valiant, which is narvs, and Overswarm coming into the chat as well. For those of you interested in watching some racing tomorrow at 3 o'clock, that's when Overswarm and I will be doing our Doom's Rage flag set race. That should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to doing a practice run here tonight after I'm done with the restream, and then prepping for my inevitable demise here. Alright, so narvs taking on final Kefka, has access to instant death, has access to Siren, and has access to Golem. Although he does have Gem Box economizer on Celeste. And with a gem box, you cannot actually summon Espers with X magic as your main magic command. So I hope that narvs did not put one of his important Esper summons on Celeste here. Alright, narvs opting to going with the targeting magic spells for now, for his Mog, who is our Blitz Bum Rush user. We've got Setzer with the fixed dice. We have Edgar with Atma Weapon Offering, basically just saying, ball of fists, go home. See you later there. Moving on to tier 2. Turdsman, meanwhile, getting his last fight here with Poltergeist. And the stop going out on Setzer. But he's got Mog with a Valiant Knife Offering that he found from the Coliseum. However, Mog has got pretty full HP, so not exactly helping him out here. Meanwhile, out comes Siren, I believe, to take care of magic there. And here comes the double Ultima casts. The unfortunate thing about the double Ultima is that it takes a very long time for the animation to happen. But as you see, it is doing a heck of a lot of damage. Drinksklo says Schwantz has a weakness. It's dogs. Yes, actually I'm a cat person, so yeah, that is my weakness. I do not have that dog in me. Alright, so there you go. Now Mog has got lower HP and is now starting to cut through Poltergeist like a hot knife through butter, or a Valiant knife through enemies. And narvs making use of the multi-summon in Goddess's Edict flag set, using Golem for 10 hits here. Really nice heads-up play. And with just magic left, it's time to start taking over this fight here. And that's magic down, up to tier 3 here for narvs. Turdsman better get out of the menu if he has any chance here of trying to come back in this one. Yeah, the thing with a quarter counter from Magic in this flag set is you're bound to get at least one, if not more, Mega Elixir from dead checks. That it's not nearly as bad as it usually is. Alright, so here comes our double Ultima. This will definitely take out Girl. We've already had our Golem cast, so that's our Commas Protection up. And Rest is out about half HP now after those two. And this Atma weapon should basically do the rest here. Ooh, just missing. But this Bum Rush should push it over the edge for narvs, and we should be heading up to Final Kefka in just a second here. Final Kefka coming down from up on high here. That was 7,200 damage with that with that Valiant knife there from Turdsman. Because I believe Mog has got the muscle belt on, which increases his max HP by half. Alright, so here comes final Kefka. Yeah, we have 4 Mega Elixirs here. Alright, so a Atma weapon turn doing around 16k, and then a couple of Ultimas doing around 18 or 19k, and all of a sudden, Kefka doesn't have a lot of HP left. Out comes the hyperdrive, and Mog tanks it. Way to go, Mog. Meanwhile, here comes the charge up for Goner. And here comes the Ultima cast, so this should probably do it here. And there it is, boom shakalaka, the crack, the pow. 129.23 from Narvs, taking the victory here. The first place in the matchup of Team Illumina versus Team Valiant. Going to Team Valiant, get your GGs in the chat. And make sure you also tell him in his chat that he ran a great race as well. We'll see if we can get him in for an interview here. Putting Kefka in jail. So that little screen scramble is obviously a result of having the auto-condemned counter on. Meanwhile, Turdsman on tier 2 here, using multi-summon with Tri-Talk to hit everything on the screen. Turdsman did not go and uncurse the shield. It was at 6, so it was definitely worth doing. And we're now here with the winner of the race, Narvs. GG's, congratulations on your win here in this Valiant versus Illumina match.
I am very surprised by that win. I had so many dead checks there at the end.
Yeah,
it was just like, come on, give me something.
Yeah, so each one of you did a lot of checks. You had 26, Turdsman had 24. There was definitely a lot of dead checks in some pretty easy places in this seed. What is your usual strategy for going through some of these Warring Triads flag sets?
So this is actually the only one I've really practiced much because it's so hard compared to the other ones. And I found that, you can do Lad to gain all those, the shell and the haste. But if I have people with checks that have dragons, and since the checks are harder in this, the scaling is much quicker, I just plan to do the dragons along the way. That's what kind of helps me just keep ahead of the curve by a long shot, especially when I found the Atma weapon and we need levels.
Yeah, so this seed was really interesting because we started off with characters that had free checks. And basically every single one of those free checks were more characters. To the point where you had 7 characters within the first 7 minutes, I think, of this race. So do you sort of was that a bit overwhelming to try and figure out, where the heck am I going to go? I have so many different options here.
Oh, yeah, for sure. All my practice runs, it was struggling to find characters. To get all of them so early, it's like, oh gosh, okay, where's my guaranteed Esper checks that I can try and hit along the way? Try and at least get some scaling even too for any bonuses that come from Espers. So just gaining levels without that, extra bonus.
Yeah, for certain. And there was a lot of unfortunates in this seed. You did Magitech Factory 1 and 2, they were both dead. Magitech Factory 3 was actually a Esper. Because Turdsman did go all the way through it there.
Okay.
So that was just an interesting one to find out. But that always feels bad if you're doing that and you gotta warp out in the middle there, because you normally think, hey, Magitech Factory is at least one Esper, maybe two. But yeah. So you also went to go get the Curse Shield way earlier in this seed than Turdsman, who got it never. So is that something you usually look for when you have one of these flag sets with access to the Curse Shield for passing it around to your party members in Kefka's Tower? Because I saw you doing a bit of that as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, usually I try and grab that early. I hesitated to grab it early this time just because it was another free check, and I felt like I had so many free checks without much leveling and scaling, but I figured it was worth the chance, especially for how hard the statue bosses are at the end a lot of times, because most of the rewards for dead checks here are all defensive, and you're on the clock when it comes to that auto countdown. So you just need more offense than you usually need defense, but I decided it was worth giving a chance on this run.
Yeah, that countdown timer only came into play, I think, maybe once or twice in your seed. I know one of the statue bosses caught you with the Umaro there, which unfortunately you can't really weight trick with, right?
And that was a case of I 100% forgot Bum Rush. I've done it thousands of times, and this one time, I was like, why am I doing Air Lance? This is not what I want. And then I realized I was just totally inputting the wrong thing.
Yeah, it's one extra set of taps before the Airblade one, right? So.
Yep, exactly. And I just completely goofed on that one.
So Turdsman, by the way, not too far behind you, 134.01. So get your GGs for Turdsman, who thankfully ran a pretty good seed there. Unfortunately, was just a little bit behind with some of the things that he did there. Running into Magimaster later, you ran into him pretty early, right? So he was relatively easy for you versus Turdsman.
Yes. Luckily, I was able to throw a shield and. Yep, I agree. Yeah, I threw a shield at him, and then luckily with having fixed dice and the Atma weapon having offer and you don't miss, I felt like I was able to had a chance of tackling him there.
Yeah. So this seed was basically just where the heck are all of the Espers here. Do you have a particular flag set that you enjoy playing? I know you said you find the goddess ones to be basically very difficult. Are there ones that you like more than others, perhaps?
No, I think out of all of them, yeah, I actually like the difficulty of the goddess seed. It felt like it kind of evens some playing. It's not a pure jet speed seed ever. It takes longer to get the checks, and like I said, with all the dead checks being defensive, your chances of getting really high offense is much lower. Right. So you gotta look for a little harder.
So speaking of looking for things, Turdsman
takes longer to get the checks, and like I said, with all the dead checks being defensive, your chances of getting really high offense is much lower. So
I'm doing okay. Happy that that it was the middle. It was the middle part. Just glad that part's over, and I got into the tower and just whooped everything. That part felt good.
Yeah, so you decided to visit the Coliseum early on and found a Valiant knife there for a relatively cheap trade. Is that sort of a play that you tend to make in this goddess flag set where, as Narvs was mentioning, you're not getting weapons from dead checks, so you got to find out some way to do your offense?
Yeah, I that's what I'll do if I don't have enough good abilities. Like I had... I think there was a capture and blitz, and I forget what the other two were, but like they're
tools.
What? Sorry?
Tools was another one.
Okay.
Edgar had tools.
Yeah, tools isn't terrible, but like it was on Edgar, so he wasn't hitting like 700 or 800 with the flash. So yeah, I needed something to swing to do the last little bit of damage after I break a couple rods, basically.
Yep, and similar to Narvs, I was saying, normally we had some characters with some free checks, and all of those free checks had other characters in it. So by the time you were at 10 minutes in the seed, you now had basically half the game open to you. And how did that sort of feel for you early on in the seed?
It felt really good until I got into the Magitech facility and got 2 dead checks in a row and was like, okay, all right, this is gonna make me work for it a little bit harder, because I like having a bunch of characters early on, especially in these seeds, since you're getting enemies are getting stronger regardless of what you pick up. I prefer to pick up a character, and Esper is great too, because then you get the XP bump, but I prefer to get the characters so that I have as many options as possible and I can really pick which is going to take the least amount of time right now. Like I kind of prefer to make the decisions like that as opposed to trying to figure out like an optimal string, thinking like 3 or 4 moves ahead or something like that. I feel like when I get a lot of characters, I can relax a bit and just take like a couple really fast ones until I have some more resources.
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of the fast checks didn't really pay off, right? There was the Magimaster in the Sky dead check. There was the South Figaro Cave dead check. There was Realm, who was Cyan, right, as the reward.
Yeah.
What's funny is, within the first 10 minutes of the seed, I knew that both of you guys were getting skipped because we found 8 characters. Because you had found Realm and, Narvs had found Strago, right? So we knew that there is at least 9 different characters that we could see throughout the whole seed. So it was just interesting that way. So I think one of the biggest differences is that Narvs did go early on to go to the Curse Shield, and the count was at 6.
Oh man, I talked to the wrong old guy.
Yeah, I did see you talk to an old guy, and he sort of harumphed at you, and I was like, did he mean to talk to the other one? And yeah, so having that Curse Shield, uncursing it, getting Ultima was definitely part of Narv's endgame strategy. With that gem box that you sold, bought the economizer as well. So that was his. Was it sort of like an analysis paralysis with the amount of free checks you had, and it just sort of was like, listen, I'm not going to get any more free checks, just forget about it?
Yeah, a little bit. I completely forgot about the Curse Shield. I tend to do that just because even if Ultima isn't in play, I really like having a Paladin Shield on hand.
Mm-hmm.
But I just kind of spaced on it, and by the time I got through Narsh, I was already like ping-ponging, and I had already done just the ultimate mistake of like walking halfway towards a check and going like, maybe I'll do something else right now. And so I was kind of trying to like keep up a pace, and yeah, it started to feel a little I was starting to get a little nervous about what the best choice to make would be, because I wanted to do the dragons. I wanted to get that shell and haste, which meant I really wanted to go into Phoenix Cave, and I was very happy that was an actual Esper, because like halfway through it, I kind of realized like, oh man, if this is another character, God forbid, like, I wasted a bunch of time.
Yeah, let's have some more options on the table for us, right?
Yes. Hey, Shadow's here, Sabin's here. Why not?
Yeah, why not? So I guess questions for both of you, and I'll start with you, Narvs. For this flag set, do you feel like doing the dragons is more palpable than, say, doing the 2.5-minute quest to help the injured lad for those status effects? Because this seed, we basically had our skip already, like when the seed started with the amount of characters that we had, right? So
yes, for me, usually it comes down to kind of my first couple of characters, and do they have checks with dragons? Then I'm probably going to try and push for dragons. And like I might even go for the skip by getting the, do a 1-party single lane, get the dragon on the way, and then come back and skip. And if I don't start with anybody with any checks that really have dragons in them, then I do the lad, just because I feel like the time difference is worth it than trying to hunt down dragons, around the map. But the dragons are usually, I feel like, better just because you get that just higher levels, that scaling to keep up with it. It just makes a big difference.
Yeah, so Turdsman, same question about the quest for the auto beneficial status.
Yeah, I guess kind of a similar answer. Like if I have some characters early on, I think Locke was the 5th character I picked up, and I think I had Edgar. Yep. And Umaro, that was the other one. So if I have characters that have dragons along the way, I'll kind of push the injured lad out of out of my mind.
Got it.
And think like, okay, I'm gonna be running by those places anyway. I might as well grab those dragons for the same reasons. As Narv said, that's really good experience, really good magic points, and at least in this flag set, a decent chance to grab a nice piece of armor or something like that. But if I had none of those, then I probably would have done the injured lad right away, honestly, because that's haste and shell are both pretty good, and if you get lucky with, having a little bit of extra money, the injured lad quest shouldn't take much more than like 2.5 minutes.
Right. Yeah, I guess the only bad thing with haste is, it will speed up your condemned counter.
Oh, that's true.
Can be a bit of a problem, as narvs found out in Kefka's Tower.
Yeah.
So another question for you, Turdsman, from the chat from Drinks Glue. What positives do you take out of tonight's performance, despite finishing in second place here?
Well, I mean, there's always something to learn, right? Like if you're paying attention to yourself as I recognized all of the the times that I tripped a little bit, like maybe like I should have gotten a little bit more damage behind me before I started really getting into picking up some checks and fighting some bosses. That Scullion at the beginning, I probably should have just noped out of that and tried a different spot. Stuff like that. It's kind of little things. I always try to make sure that if I lose a race, to think about like, okay, here's like 3 things that I did wrong on that one that I can obviously tell, like, okay, that was I got greedy, usually is the problem. But
yeah, I disagree. I think I liked the Scullion play. You stuck in it and used your rods, right, to the advantage there, and you were level 13 after just one fight. So yeah, it took a little bit longer, but you were already like just one fight and you're already 10 more levels ahead, right? I think that you opened way too many chests, after a certain amount of time. But we're all guilty of doing that, let's be honest. It's like you could apply that criticism to basically everybody,
Oh yeah.
So.
No, and that's definitely something I do. I was trying to be mindful of it. I didn't touch anything on the way down to the ancient castle. I definitely looted the ancient castle itself. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I think that was me feeling once I noticed that Edgar was getting closer to level 30, I finally put the Atma weapon on him. Right. And I think that's what was in the back of my head trying to get those chests is, Edgar isn't online yet. I need something for Edgar to do right now. Mm-hmm. Kind of forgetting that I had a thing in the wings waiting for him to pick up.
Yep. And then, Narv, something that you did this run that you'll carry forward into your next run's positive thing, or something you want to look out for, obviously, for yourself.
Remembering what Bum Rush is again. Completely forgetting that was a big deal and had me reset on that spicy chicken fight. Otherwise, in this one, yeah, I think probably I should have put earlier on the Paladin Shield for Cells. I was using it first for the Atma weapon to keep him fully healed all the time, but Cells with Ultima, I think even earlier, would have saved me even more time because she wasn't really doing anything in the beginning. She was just kind of standing by. So...
yeah, it can be tough to figure out like how to get something online if you haven't gotten the exact pieces that you really want.
For sure. That's all part of Worlds, and that's the thing that always is evolving, and everybody's always trying to learn, doing more with less kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I really try to keep in mind the like phrase that you said, Schwantz, earlier. Like, you don't have to win that much. Like, if you're winning, you're winning. You don't have to win 300%. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I always struggle with when I have multiple powerful characters. I'm always throwing them all to do all attacks, but really, you really need, like, especially with haste, you only need like 2 people attacking that are really strong. They can just take all the damage and let's let them run with it because they're just quicker.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that strategy on this one. Like, I probably should have just let Mog and Edgar swing the various HP based weapons and let Locke just kind of chill.
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
this race was a lot of fun to watch. You guys both were in the ancient castle at exactly the same time, pretty much.
Oh, good.
Nice little
funny.
sync up there. I think there was like a 1 Esper difference between the two of you too. So it was in spite of the fact that the entire world was open to you two, you still sort of were like, I'm gonna go do dragons. So that was pretty cool to
Yep.
kind of see that in strategy. So any other thoughts, Narvs, on this seed or the Warring Triads event in general before we get out of here?
Nope, this was great. This was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed these seeds. They definitely mix things up from the standard flags even, but you can still practice them. You can still rely on some, things about each seed. So that's been good.
For sure. So good luck with the rest of the season, although not too much luck because we're in the same pod. So
Yeah.
So, but thanks for volunteering to be on the restream again. Can't have the races without the runners. So thank you so much, and good luck, but not too much luck with the rest of the season.
Yeah, nice run, Turdsman.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for fighting.
And Turdsman, you have any other final thoughts on this race or the Triads event in general here?
I just want to give the big shout out to Double Down for coming up with pretty fun and interesting, events pretty consistently too. Like I like having stuff that isn't Ultros League to fuss around with and have a good excuse to play a bunch of them. So this has been a lot of fun. Really appreciate it. And yeah, thank you for putting the show on. I figured this was just going to be kind of thrown into the ether, but glad I could put on a show for everybody tonight.
Yes, and thanks for volunteering to run. And Team Illumina will hopefully finish off the other 2 races with a W for our team. But hey, if not, we learned stuff along the way for the next time as we continue to go on, right? So that's
Absolutely.
The point of the tournament, is being on a team. Everybody learns from each other, which is great. So. All right, cool. Well, that is going to do it for us here. Final Fantasy VI Worlds Collide. Again, great job to our runners. As always, we'll shout them out. Can't have the races without them. And we're going to have a lot of other 1v1 matches here from the Warring Triads event throughout the course of the event. I have a little spreadsheet with basically most of the times that have been discussed already, and we'll see if we can staff up, restreams for these particular things. One that I know is going to be going down on Wednesday, 8 p.m. Eastern on one of the Speed Gaming channels. We'll have one of the matchups going on there, and then we will see about the rest of the week with some of the various different times we have. But we had a lot of matches today for our first day. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 matches in total. We got a couple of them at least on the broadcast, which is great. So, but anyways, thank you, Moogles, in chat and in the internets for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks a lot. Peace out now.
Thank you.
Have a good night.